Okay, so this week I watched the podcast from Coach Squidge, and the name of the podcast is an historic vote among many, and it was on October 31st, 2020. The podcast is mainly talking about the most important thing right now is the election of America, and they starting to evaluate back to the history before when the election in America is not actually accurate because some black people does not have a right to vote after 1964, after the Voting Rights Act actually happened. So they give really accurate example statistic, and yep, they're doing a great job about providing evidence. So it sounds very persuasive to me, and I have learned those things before, so I know that Voting Rights Act and all of those things is actually good, and it was in my study before. So as the result, they uh, they bring out the point that what surprised me is like your grandfather has to have the right to vote, and after that you will have the right to vote. So that means the grandfather usually between 1890 something, and after in that time black people doesn't have the right to vote. So if your grandfather is black, you don't have the right to vote. So that's the thing to like break the Voting Rights Act, and there's many other things to break I have learned before. So this is a very good example that bring up me a lot of memories. So about many other election that they talk about Johnson and all of those president, it's bring back memory for me too. Even I was not born at that time, but actually I watched those election in my class, and I like the way that they bring the real person to come, the real person, a very old lady, and she actually experienced the problem at that time about voting right, so she can talk about it very accurately, and I can know how the black people feeling at that time about not having the right to vote, and every the government try to do anything to prevent her to vote, like no ID, like getting the driver license for long way, so she cannot get a driver license, so she cannot try to drive her car to vote. So that is many thing that they plan to do to prevent them to vote. So actually I like this podcast. They sound very persuasive, and they give evidence, and they just go directly to the main thing that they supposed to talking about, like the title. Some podcasts they just going around and starting to have some weird voice, and yep, uh, they not only provide evidence, but they also provide a video, I mean the podcast of the other president in the past who is actually talking to the people at that time, so it sounds very realistic. So that's the best thing that I have think about this podcast. That's it.